So over these last few months we've been looking at the Gospel of Mark, and today we come to chapter 6 where Jesus returns to his hometown. Back in chapter 3, at the start of his ministry, Jesus encountered opposition. The religious leaders who said he was demon-possessed, and his family, his brothers and sisters, who said he was out of his mind. So I guess if you've ever fallen out with your siblings, then the Son of God knows what that's like, which I kind of find reassuring. But now, with witnesses of his teaching everywhere, and evidence of his miracles commonplace, Jesus returns to his hometown, to the people who watched him grow up, to his childhood friends, to those who said, "We're familiar with Jesus." And the unsaid question that Jesus is posing on his return visit is, well, who am I? What do you make of my claims? How will you respond to me? And in Mark chapter 6 verse 1, page 1008, we discover that his teaching is actually a stumbling block. That people who trip remain merely familiar strangers when he could have been a foundation stone for them. So that's where we're going this morning. Jesus' teaching, a stumbling block. His person, a familiar stranger. His potential, our foundation stone. Stumbling block, familiar stranger, foundation stone. That's our ideas. His teaching was a stumbling block. In verse 1 we have, so Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. And when the Sabbath came, he began teaching in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. His teaching is incredible. Nothing like it has been heard before. He taught with such authority. He didn't say, this rabbi thinks this, and this rabbi thinks that. These people think this, and others think that. He taught with personal authority. This is what's true. He was well into his ministry now, and he may well have been saying things like, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the light of this world. I am the great shepherd. I am before Abraham even was. We already know that his teaching has been, I am the one able to forgive sins. I am Lord of the Sabbath. I am the fulfillment of prophecy, the sign of Jonah, the son of David. And it was his exclusive authority, these claims, that made people trip up. It was not because his teaching was dubious, or his miracles were a con trick, or his life inconsistent. It was because not only did he say people needed salvation, which of course they would agree with, but that he was the Saviour. They would have found this incredibly challenging. They were Jews. They were God's people. They knew a bit or two about salvation. They would have said, we've been going up this particular theological mountain, Jesus, our entire nation's history. We know the way. You can't be the only way. How can you say this? How can you say you are the only way to God? It's quite a claim, isn't it? You know, there are many people today who would absolutely agree with them. Some of them would be Church of England vicars. They might say, you know, there are many ways up the mountain to God, to salvation. All faiths lead up the mountain. I want to say to you, I have real trouble with this, because I can't see how that can possibly be true. Firstly, Satanism doesn't lead up the mountain. Aztec religion, with their brutality and their child sacrifices, can't be the right way up the mountain. Humanism, that might have wonderful morals, doesn't even think there's a mountain to go up. Buddhism, which also has great morals, says when you get to the top of the mountain, there's no one there. Clearly, some belief systems lead down the mountain. Baal worship. And some faiths don't even believe there is a mountain or there's a God at the top of the mountain. So clearly not all faiths go up the same mountain. But more than this, even if there are many ways of accessing God, even if there are many paths up the mountain, good faiths, whatever they are, sound faiths, whatever they are, all faiths lead to exactly the same problem. As we go up the mountain, we encounter a chasm separating every one of us from God. You don't even have to get halfway up the mountain to discover that this is true. A chasm so wide, the distance so vast, the problem so deep and entrenched that no human being can cross it themselves. The key concern of, say, Judaism or Islam, indeed of all good people who seek God, is the question, how do I close the gap between me and God? How do I, the finite, commune with the infinite? How can I, who have made so many mistakes, and let me be honest with you, some of them shameful, commune with the pure holiness of God? How can I be forgiven? How can I ever be good enough? How can I know the God who made the universe, who stands outside of time and space and matter? How can he be so interested in somebody as insignificant as me? All religions that seek God say, Steve, if you're good, if you try harder, if you keep your nose clean, and if you jump as far as you can, you will make it across that chasm. And Jesus said, you won't. You can't. Think about it. It's impossible. But here am I, says Jesus, which means that God has come to us, because clearly you and I could never get to God. And through me, not only does God make a path open for us to access God, but he does that through unconditional forgiveness and his self-sacrifice. And so incredible, and so outrageous, and so unexpected are his claims, that his hometown are shocked and amazed. So Jesus' first challenge to all people is simply the question, do you put your faith in yourself being good enough to get to God? Or do you put your faith in a person where God comes to us and he is good enough through his grace? This is a stumbling block, let me say, to everyone who thinks they reckon they are good enough to jump the chasm themselves. So firstly, Jesus' claims were a stumbling block. And because of that, he remained to those people a somewhat familiar stranger. For they said, verse 3, isn't this the carpenter? Didn't he used to have a workshop just round the corner? Isn't this Mary's son? Didn't I babysit for him? Aren't these his brothers, and standing over there, aren't those his sisters? They were rude to me once. How can he, Jesus, be any of these things? And they were offended at him. The Greek word is scandalon. They were scandalized by what he was saying. It was not only that Jesus' theology shocked them, it was his claim to personal extraordinariness that made all the wheels fall off their wagon. Look, everyone agrees that Jesus' moral teaching is unparalleled. And everyone agrees that his recorded lifestyle is beyond reproach. And everyone can see the difference that Jesus makes for good in people's lives. Those things aren't the issue for us this morning. The issue is he who he claims to be? He says, I am Emmanuel, God with you. Not only do you need salvation, but I am your Saviour. And this is always going to provoke a reaction when people hear this. Jesus both saves and scandalizes. And if we think we can sit on the fence, let me tell you, Jesus' teaching and his person will come on and push us off it. Jesus doesn't want us to conclude he's just a great religious leader, or a somewhat familiar historical figure, or a shadowy stranger from the past. He returns to his hometown, to those who think they know him, to say, you don't know me at all. Jesus can be a familiar stranger to so many. To those academics who, by their own light and using their own intelligence, pick and choose what passages to accept and reject out of Scripture, who decide to have this in and to take that out and to reinterpret things according to their own opinions. Jesus is familiar, but an utter stranger. To the rationalists who believe God can only do what they can understand, who say the feeding of the 5,000, not a miracle. Everybody just got inspired and got out their own fish-based sandwiches and shared it around to sort of bring and share lunch. Walking on water, not a miracle. Jesus just walked around the lake, saw a sandbank, and went out to the disciples in the storm. Raising the girl from the dead, not a miracle. She was just in a coma and just happened to come out of it at the right time. They are familiar with Jesus, but they don't know who he is. If we cannot get past the idea that Jesus is more than a carpenter, more than Mary's son, more than an historically great religious leader, he will be forever someone familiar, but a stranger. God has come to us in Jesus, not simply to close the gap, but that you and I might know God. So firstly, is he a stumbling block to you? Is he a familiar stranger? Or is he the foundation stone? Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honour except in his hometown. To those that have been brought up thinking about Jesus, thinking that they were religious, going to church and synagogue. And he could do no miracles in their life except lay his hands on a few people who were ill and heal them. And he was just amazed, and I suspect saddened, by their lack of faith. They didn't honour him, and therefore they saw no miracles. If so far you've been with me and it's been absolutely fine with you so far, then this is our takeaway point. They did not honour him, and therefore they saw no miracles. Their lack of honour given to Jesus and who he is meant their life was untouched by the power of the Holy Spirit. You know, something happens in us, and I've seen this so many times. Something happens in us when we honour Jesus in our lives. When we say, God, you have revealed yourself to us, to me, in Jesus. God, the hands that flung stars into space, to cruel nails surrendered. God, you loved me in this way. I see you in Jesus. God, be the foundation of my life. Be my thinking, be my direction, be my basis. Something happens when we say that, when we think that. God's Spirit comes in and starts to do the miraculous in us and through us. It's perfectly possible to be familiar with Jesus and for him to remain a stranger. It's possible to be a vicar in the Church of England and for Jesus still to be a stranger. So I would counsel you, treat all vicars with utter suspicion. The question is, do they honour Jesus? Do they see him as the way, the truth, and the life? The BBC commissioned a nativity drama about 10 years ago. It was produced by a man called Tony Jordan. He also produced, by the way, EastEnders. He's a really respected screenwriter. In an interview with the Daily Telegraph, he said, I don't come from a religious background, and I don't think that I am anybody's fool. I was expelled from school at 14. I've been in trouble, and people from my sort of background have always discounted the nativity story, and I certainly didn't believe it when I started on this project 3 years ago. The BBC wanted me to make the nativity a farce. Do you see that? The BBC, a liberal institution, wanted me to make it a farce. So I read history books, and I consulted theologians, and they told me it couldn't possibly have happened. That's what secular academics and theologians will say. But then, I sensed the power behind the story, and I believed it. The only thing I know for sure is that the words I read from Jesus are the most truthful thing I have ever heard. A blueprint for mankind. Foundation stone. It's so smart, he said, that it couldn't even have come from a clever philosopher. He said, if you accept Jesus as the Son of God, then why wouldn't you believe that Mary was a virgin and that God had some hand in her impregnation? The theologians and the academics think it a farce. But Tony Jordan put his faith in Jesus. And he says the miracle happened in his life. Christians have said the same down through the ages. Honour Jesus, miracles happen. Honour Jesus, miracles happen. There comes a point, I think, in everyone's life when we meet this problem. How will I ever close the gap between me and God? How will I ever know God? We get choices. We can give up and say, God, you cannot be known. I don't even think you exist. I'm not even sure of you. I'm not even going to bother. Or we can try and close the gap by being as good as we can, keeping our nose clean, thinking we can leap that chasm. Let me tell you, if that's you this morning, your view of God and His holiness is way, way too small. Or we can honour Jesus, God with us, God given to us, God crucified for us, make Him our cornerstone, put our faith in Him, and the miracle that you did not think possible can happen. Healing of the past, power in the present, hope in death, light in darkness. God did not make you that you might be a stranger to Him. He made you that you might be His friend. Let's pray. In this quiet moment, Lord God, we pray that we might see with eyes of faith, heart open, mind understanding, that you made heaven and earth, something out of nothing. That you designed the laws of physics and chemistry and maths and made it so that we might be here. You are the antithesis of chaos. You are the designer of order. And you have made us for a purpose, to know you. Lord God, help us not to put our faith in our own goodness, but simply to accept your grace and mercy and to build our life on you, Lord Jesus, the cornerstone of love and grace. And God, may the Holy Spirit's miracle happen in our heart and mind this morning.